Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Today we're talking about some mirrorless full frame goodness. And from who, you ask? Panasonic. Panasonic users and Micro Four Thirds users at large have been teased with a Panasonic release for quite some time now. And with the 2020 Olympics just around the corner in Tokyo, I think they would be fools not to use their sponsorship platform to really push and make a big dive into the full frame mirrorless market. Now, I've used GH5s and GH5Ss. This is an S, that's a 5, and I love them. And that's no secret. A lot of people who own these cameras have found that they're absolute workhorses for video. For the better part of a year, we've heard rumors of 8K, full frame, and we're not really sure where that's going, but 43 Rumors is a website that shares a lot of these Micro Four Thirds camera rumors, and recently they've really been firing up the press. They have released almost every couple days something new about a full frame mirrorless Panasonic camera. Now, I want to dive into this with you a little bit because there are some pieces I'd like to pick apart. The announcement is only a few days away, meaning that we're going to get some confirmation on whether these are actually real stats or not for this beast of a camera. Let's hope that they are, because it sounds amazing. From a time frame perspective, this is really perfect for Panasonic. They're one of the major sponsors of the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo, and using that marketing platform to really push and get people to understand that Panasonic is a major player in the mirrorless full frame game is very strategic thinking. And as far as I'm concerned, they're using this event in order to get their camera in front of the world and show them that it's not just about the Canons and the Nikons and the Sonys, there's a new player in town. Now obviously the Panasonic name has always been synonymous with video. I'm filming this right now on a GH5S. I've got the GH5 on a slider over there, and even before these cameras with their predecessors, the GH4s, the GH3s, the camera and video capabilities in a hybrid package have always leaned a little bit more to the video side. And so with this release of a full frame mirrorless camera, I don't see Panasonic straying too far from their roots, even though some of the rumors on 43 Rumors have said, well, this is going to be aiming at those big mirrorless DSLRs or DSLRs in general, such as the Sony A9 and the Nikon D850. Should photography specs be bumped? Probably. I think that's definitely going to happen. Now, some of these specs are actually going to make you wonder if this is competing with cinema rigs, and while a camera that's in the $3,000 or $4,000 range is never going to compete with something that costs $10, $15, $20, or even upwards of $30,000 that you would see used in Hollywood, you can still create extremely professional video and photographic content using it, and a lot of small production companies use the GH5 systems in order to produce beautiful work. That being said, if you're in the cinema range, you're probably not going to be dropping your red to pick up one of the new full-frame Panasonics. Now, it seems like these rumors are changing every day, so I'm providing you with the latest that I can find. That's not to say that these won't switch up or change before the announcement on September 25th, which is just around the corner, but this is what we know as of right now. So we know Panasonic is using Photokina as a platform for announcing and later releasing their camera. However, some of the dates of the 2019 Photokina have me wondering and just a little bit curious about the timing here for Panasonic. That said, the rumor sites are saying that Panasonic will actually try and release their new mirrorless full frame in March of 2019, which is slated to be before the May 2019 Photokina event. So I'm not sure what's up there, but we'll find out. So I just want to walk you through some of the specs. Now, it should be noted that on 43rumors.com and some other sites, they use a scoring system. So essentially, they have what we say is an FT5. I guess that's 4/3 5. I'm not sure. Either way, it's the highest category. It means it's the most confirmed, and it's likely that we'll see those implementations in the new cameras. There are also, however, a lot of FT2s, 4/3 2. I'm not sure what that FT stands for, but that FT2 is of a lower rating. Maybe the source is unconfirmed, or it could be just somebody saying something and it's been caught on by these other bloggers or whoever's writing the articles. It should be noted that FT5s are where you should probably focus most of your attention. The other FT2s are just unconfirmed for the time being, although in the near future they may solidify and turn into something more real. So actually what I'm going to do for you right now is pull down a little screen where you can see all of the rumors listed out. Make your own decision, but I'll talk through a few of them and let you know what I think. Just a second. So here are the specs that we've been made aware of up to this point. Now, the first is a 42 megapixel MOS sensor. Some earlier rumors had said it would be around 30 megapixels, but if the 8K rumor that was floating around even earlier is actually true with this mirrorless full frame, we know that we need between 40 and 45 megapixels to make that happen. A full frame readout in 4K mode and 4K recording options at 24 and 25 frames per second. That is huge because the only other camera doing this right now is the Sony, and it would seem that the new competitor would be the Sony a7S III, but that announcement has not been made yet and won't be coming for some time now. I think they're waiting on what Panasonic is going to say. And what does this mean for a 4K readout in 60 frames per second? Well, as it's looking right now, it's probably going to be cropped slightly, but we can't say what that form factor is going to look like just yet. It's supposed to have 4K RAW, but this is only available with the HDMI output into an external recorder, the likes of maybe a Ninja V or a Ninja Inferno or any of the other recorders in their lineup. Now, despite this 4K RAW output needing an HDMI, we have heard that it is supposed to have 10-bit 422 internal, which is huge, and the only other cameras doing that right now are actually under the Lumix brand already, the GH5S and the GH5. Now, it's supposed to have 2 SD card slots. The combination of these we're not really sure about yet. Some said earlier on that it would have 1 SD card slot and 1 CFast card slot, but others are saying that it'll just have 2 SD card slots. Either way, the current GH5 and GH5S already use a 2 card slot system, so I can't see them taking this away from their bigger, better camera. It's supposed to have an internal variable ND filter, which is huge. The EVA1 from Panasonic uses this system right now, and it makes filming in a variety of environments much, much easier. If you're a photographer or a videographer for that matter who's had to use external variable NDs, you know that oftentimes you need a step-up ring, a step-down ring, and then you've got to attach your ND filter. It can be quite the hassle, and it's actually an entirely separate piece of your gear kit that you have to account for. They also say it's supposed to be weather sealed, which the GH5 and GH5S already are. This is more or less dust proofing and splash proofing. You can't simply submerge the camera and expect it to work, but seeing as they've already implemented that on older models, I can't see them taking that away or downgrading it in any way for their new release. It's also supposed to have the headphone jack, mic input, USB-C, and HDMI. Now, the last thing they've mentioned is just like the GH5 and GH5S, they are supposed to have a new and updated XLR audio unit that will attach to the top shoe on the top of the camera. I've used the current XLR in a variety of shooting situations and it works beautifully. It's super convenient, but it could be a little sturdier. That connection point on the top is questionable at times. So if they can increase and bolster the size of that, go for it. Now, as far as ergonomics are concerned, the Panasonic G9 has some of the best around. I feel like that camera just works perfectly with my hands, better than any other camera I've actually held, and I'd like to see them utilize a similar form factor and footprint within this new mirrorless full frame. I don't know the direction they'll go, but I do hope that they actually give it some size. I don't really care about the tiny camera thing. I mean, I've got pretty big hands. And that said, I'd like something that feels good and feels sturdy whenever I'm using it, both in running gun situations or with studio work. For them to shrink everything down into this tiny size, especially since they're not trying to fit this whole thing around a micro four thirds sensor, it seems a little bit unnecessary. So even if it means bulking it up a little bit to make sure they can cram in everything that they want, I'm down. And the price is approximately $3,000. This is obviously unconfirmed, but for a camera doing this many things internally and potentially externally, $3,000 seems like a steal, especially when you stack it up against the competition. Now, one of the big points of contention here is that this new mirrorless full frame likely won't have IBIS. Now, as we know, the GH5 actually has IBIS, and it's incredible. 400mm lens for birding and no tripod? Yeah, that's special, and especially when you pair it with a lens that has internal stabilization as well. you're on another level. People have been competing with them and losing left and right. Now, whenever you consider the GH5S, for example, it has no IBIS. It is more or less inclined for professional videographers and filmmakers who don't want IBIS in the camera. And a lot of cinema rigs actually have no IBIS whatsoever. And the reason for that is that these cameras already have dedicated stabilization devices. Whether that's a tripod, a slider, a Steadicam, whatever it is, those devices are going to do a better job of stabilizing the sensor than an actual internal IBIS kind of situation. Now, it's also said that they won't have the IBIS in the full frame package because of the sensor size. With the Micro Four Thirds sensor, you have a little more flexibility with including the necessary mechanical components to make sure the sensor can shift adequately. But whenever you're using a full frame sensor, I have heard that they're actually afraid there might be too much heat generated internally if they include the IBIS with this package. Now, the last thing I'd like to mention is about lenses. This is also very up in the air as far as the rumors are concerned, and it's one of the things that has me on the edge of my seat the most. If you look back there on that shelf, I have a pretty heavy investment in Micro Four Thirds glass, and I love it. The Pro lineup from Olympus is unreal. The build quality is superb, and my Leica lenses are also awesome. As far as video work goes, the dual stabilization that I get out of those with my camera units is unparalleled. But I don't think I'm going to be using these on a full frame camera. Some people have speculated that they might actually be including or designing some kind of adapter so that you can use 4/3 glass on a full frame sensor. To me, I don't know how I feel about that. I think it seems like you would want something more dedicated in order to actually utilize the full scope of a full frame sensor. With 4/3 glass on a full frame sensor, you're actually going to be cropping your usable space on that sensor, and at that point, what is the point? Just use the GH5, the GH5S. Now, as we know, the relationship between Panasonic and Leica has birthed some incredible lenses, including this beast right here, which is the 1.2 Nocticron. It's unreal glass. Seriously, Leica has been in the game for a long time. They know what they're doing. But at the same time, the Leica brand carries a hefty price tag. If you've looked at any of their lenses, you know that they're in upwards of $5,000, $6,000, even $7,000 on the SL mount. And so, because of that, I don't feel like the market that Panasonic is trying to reach is going to spend $3,000 on a body and then jump over to Leica's website and drop $6,000, $7,000. I just don't see that. So I do hope that Panasonic will utilize the new mounting system in order to at least play nicely with some of the other brands. I hope they'll do that because I think the prosumer market and their market in general would benefit very, very much from having a wide variety of lenses to choose from. But as it stands, this is probably one of the biggest points that we don't know about, and hopefully the event on the 25th will reveal a few more solid details for us to go off of. The last point I'd like to make is that, I really hope Panasonic hits this one out of the park. The hybrid shooter phenomenon is very real, and I've seen certain other camera companies like Nikon with the Z6 and Z7 and Canon with their EOS R announcements kind of strip certain features out of those cameras, and it leaves a lot of their followers kind of wondering well, why do you keep on doing this? And I'm not a shooter from those companies, and I understand that they are more or less oriented toward the photography market, and they do an incredible job. The products they make are unreal. But at the same time, I think that Panasonic has an opportunity to capture an entire segment of the market by developing a camera that gives people the creative freedoms in both videography and photography. The days of the dad of two going out to the camera store and picking up a $2,000 or $3,000 camera in order to just get some family photos is over. If people want great family photos, they're leaning more or less toward smartphones. The camera systems on those are incredible, and whenever you look at the number of smartphone options available to people today, it's immense. Now, if you wanted to spend $1,000 on a phone or less to go out and get camera capabilities rivaling that of early DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, and the ability to immediately send a picture of the grandkids over to the rest of the family via text or Facebook, that's a better option for a lot of that existing market. And so I think the camera market, in a way, is scrambling in order to find where they can fit in. And that's why the hybrid phenomenon, to me at least, is so important, because it's giving people that originally were purchasing cameras the ability to still do video, the ability to still do camera work, and do it on a professional level, should they choose to do so. Panasonic has been really excellent about answering consumer feedback, and I hope they'll stay in line with that mentality moving into this new full-frame mirrorless market. Now, what does this mean for a potential GH6 in the future, and what does this mean for the Micro Four Thirds line in general? I don't think 4/3 is going away anytime soon. We've seen such an incredible success with the GH5 and GH5S lineup that people would be eager in order to keep this form factor in a GH6 rendition and just pack all of these features that we are supposed to see into this full frame into a little smaller form factor. Technology is only going up, and I think that they're going to find ways to downsize all of these pieces and really make sure that they keep the heart and soul of the 4/3 system in this smaller form factor with the smaller lens sizes. I wouldn't be too worried about that if you are currently. So if you got something out of this video, make sure to drop me a like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, make sure you post them down below. Do you think Panasonic's going to live up to the hype here? Let's hope. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, stay creative and keep on shooting. We'll see you in the next one.